All right, mic testing. 1 2 3. 1 2 3. All right. So this video is, well, it's my. I gotta reset. This video is going to be me explaining my C1 C++ midterm project, and our project, or I guess our objective, is we're writing a program that calculates and displays the total expenses by a homeowner over a specific range of months. So obviously one for January, two for February, so on. And we have 7 objectives that our program must have. So I'm gonna try my best to explain each step, each part of my program the best way I can. So we'll start with, obviously we have our preprocessors. We have upstream, which lets our C out, C ins. Yeah, we have using namespace standard. That way we don't have to put standard and then the little square space, so it makes it easier for us to kind of write. And then we have helpers. So we have our functions, and we have references to functions. So what this reads, this function will basically help us as we are getting input, make sure everything is positive and nothing is negative. Otherwise, if anything returns negative, it would send a message back saying, please enter a number, a positive number. So this is basically that. So this is telling, it's going to prompt, and then whatever the user enters, and then we'll have the while statement. So this is saying basically, while x is less than 0, meaning if x is a negative number, we will clear that space and ignore the white space, and then we'll prompt the user again to enter a positive number. Other than that, if the user actually listens and enters a positive number, or enters a number that we'll get to in a second for the next function, then we'll skip this and we'll return x. Next, we have our next function, which is read in the range, which I could have chosen an easier name, but this is our function for our months, for our start and end months. As you can see, we have a constant string prompt, and then we have int low, int high. Int low is our start, int high is our end month. So I have the integer v, which will be basically, later on you'll see that v would be our 1 through 12 number, and the prompt will display for this specific I'm trying to think, this specific function to go into the actual main function, which you'll see that in a second. And then it's basically saying here, if or while v is less than low or v is greater than high, this is our input to make sure that the user doesn't choose a negative or 0 for the low number, or a 13 or higher for the end month, or even for the start month, it could be. So clear gives a new line, and then we'll prompt the user again to please enter a number from low, which will be 1, to high, and then we'll get the new value. Yeah. And then, like I said from the other one, return v would be if the user follows directions. It will ignore this and we'll just straight return the value here. We have our Boolean function, which is used for later on, where we have here where it asks us if any renovations were made. So since it says if any, that's basically saying it's asking us for true or false. So it's saying, did you have renovations, yes or no? So we'll have the user print that out, which I'll show you guys. Actually, yeah, well, I'll show you guys after we get to that part. Like here, we're down here. I'll run the program and show you. At the same time, I will explain the functions and what they actually do. So yeah, here we'll give the prompt, which will most likely be yes or no, and then the data type char or character, I think, and the variable C. So we get the input, the value goes into the variable C, and this right here is basically saying if C is not equal to Y and C is not equal to capital Y and C is not equal to lowercase n and C is not equal to uppercase N, clear, create a new line, and then we'll have a statement saying please enter yes or no or Y or N. So this is our input validation, because if the user presses any other character in the keyboard that's not a Y, capital Y, lowercase, N, or capital N, then it will prompt this. Otherwise, it will return lowercase y or uppercase Y. And the reason why we don't include lowercase n and uppercase n is because when the user enters n, whether it's lowercase, uppercase, it would skip this, I guess. It will skip the function that pertains to this. So that's why we don't return that. We only return this if the user inputs Y. All right. So now here we go. So let me start and then I'll explain it. So we have our function void month range int referencing start month, int referencing end month. So as you see, we have enter the start month 1 through 12, and enter the value. So here, and I'll just show you from what I meant from this function and this function. So you'll see if I try to enter -1, it'll say please enter from 1 to 12. If I enter 0, it still says that. So that's what this function does, and that's what this function does. But this one, I'll show you. So, actually, let me reset. I will show you what I mean. So if I choose 2 and then I decide to choose 1, see, it would say please enter a number from 2 to 12, and not 1 to 12, because we basically want a range. You can't have an end month lower than the start month. That's just irrelevant. So if I choose, let's see, if I choose 2, now we jump forward to the next part. So let me reset one more time. And where are we? Right here. So yeah, so let's say we use 1 and 3. So like I said, you just saw yourself the input validation working as it should. So like I said, with the start month, it has to be greater than 1 and less than 12. Otherwise, if it's opposite, if it's less than 1 and greater than 12, then we will get the input validation. So we'll get the new line, and then the prompt will restate again saying please enter from 1 to 12. Same thing with the end month, but the end month is slightly different, because like I just said, you don't want your end month to be lower than your start month. Otherwise, that wouldn't make sense. So when doing the comparison, the relational expression, as we'll have if the end month is less than the start month, or the end month is greater than 12, clear new line and state that please enter a number from the start month. So in this case, that last example I just showed you, if I put 2 for the start month, instead of saying from 1 to 12, it'll be saying 2 to 12. And then, yeah, so the user will put the new variable, the new value into the variable end month. And then we'll jump to the next part, which is the amount of mortgage or rent. And this is basically what we have to have is two values. An actual, which is basically what you actually spend, and the budget, which is what was the actual amount you had intended to spend for that. So we get the next part where it says enter the rent's expected amount, and then that value goes into the actual variable. So to show you input validation, if I were to put a negative 1,000, it would show me another prompt saying please enter a positive number. That's where this function comes into play. So if the actual is less than 0, we'll get new line and then have that printed. So now if I put positive 1,000 and then enter the budget amount. So this is where you want to, obviously it's the same. A lot of this that I'm going to explain has very similar, if not exactly the same way in terms of the input validation. So I will try not to repeat it as much, but just to show you guys, again, if I were to write a negative number, it would prompt me again to please enter a positive number. That's where this comes up. If budget is less than 0, clear, new line, prompt the user that. So then if I actually put positive 900, this will actually show us right here that if and how much. So in this case, it told us rent went over the budget by $100. This is where the comparison, because part of the project is that we have to have basically a list. Now I couldn't actually put it into a list. This was kind of the best I could have done it, where it actually tells you how much and what went over budget. But yeah, that's part of this little objective, is to have a list of expenses that went over budget and showing which ones. So here, because our budget, our expected or our actual amount was 1,000 for the rent, but our budget was actually only 900. It will tell us that the rent went over by $100. So that's my way of basically having the program tell the user what went over by how much. So for example, and then if let's say I put 800 for the expected amount, and I put 900 for the budget, it would have said here, this is where this else if. So saying else if the actual was less than the budget, meaning if our 900 was less than the 1,000 for the budget amount, then we would get this message instead: rent is under the budget by, and then it'll tell us by how much. Otherwise, the last case scenario would be if they match. So say if our rent actual was 1,000 and our budget was 1,000, then we would get this. So next part, we have home insurance. And also for most of these, I chose to use the data type double because we are dealing with decimals. So yeah, you can technically put decimals, but most of the time when it comes to this kind of things, I think the only thing that doesn't do decimals would be like probably like utilities, but we'll get into that in a second. So, like I said, we use the data type double for home insurance and budget amount. And now we have a new prompt that's asking the user to enter a home insurance number. So, we could do, let's do 800. And then the budget amount would be, let's say 700. So, like I said, we have our, let me show you. We have our, I forgot. Oh, we have our input validation here and here. So like you just saw here, I try to enter negative 700 for the budget amount. And so when the program read that, it saw that it's less than 0, meaning it would clear it and then give us a new line and then reprompt the user right here. Please enter positive. So now I would enter 700, and then just like the rent, it will tell you right here that insurance went over the budget by $100. And that's where this first if statement came. Just like the other one, if the home insurance is greater than the budget amount, we'll get this message, and then we'll also get by how much. Likewise, if the home insurance was less than the budget amount, we'll get this message and the amount. And then finally, if they match, we'll get this message. So now we have the utilities. Utilities took me a while because it's different from every other objective, because it's asking for the monthly utility cost. That's not the same as throughout the period, because it does say here, which may vary by month, along with expected amount for each utility. So the way I did this, I made a function called get utility budgets, and I used the data type double, and I basically shortened them. So EB, WB, GB, and IB. EB is electricity budget, WB is water budget, gas budget, and then IB is internet budget. So our first question is electricity budget for the month. So this is this doesn't change. This will stay, and I'll show you what I mean afterwards. So we'll put 150, and now it's asking for the water budget. And all these, like I said, they all have the same input validation. So as long as they're all greater than 0, then we don't have to see this. We don't have to see this. Why do I keep blinking every time? We don't have to see this prompt, but just to show you, if I chose negative 60, it'll tell me to please enter a positive number. So we'll just put 60, and gas budget 50, internet 50. So then this is where it gets cool. So remember how, let me show you. Remember how it said here that allows the user to input the monthly, and then it says which may vary. This is where this comes to play. So I made another function that says get utility or get monthly utility costs, and I have in start month, in end month, which will include the start month and end month that the user inputted. So from 1 to 3. And then we'll have the variables that we used just a second ago, declare their values and all that stuff. and we'll have double value. And value is a new variable that we will give input to, but not right now. So now this changes. Well, I don't want to say it changes, but it resets the values we gave just now for the budget. It resets them all to 0. So our electricity budget, water budget, gas budget, internet budget got reset to 0. So now we have a for loop that will help us iterate from the start month to the end month. So it says int month equals start month. So as long as month is less than or equal to start month, we will increment month by 1. And then we'll print out in a new line month and then the number. So as you see right here, we'll have that month 1 because the start month was 1. If it was a different number for the start month, it will have a different number. So now this would be the actual amount that was spent. So just to obviously show you guys, input validation, negative, see. So let's say we say for the first part, we actually saved $10 from the electricity. Let's do this. I'll show you guys all 3 examples from under, over, and exactly. So let's see. 50, 40, 40. And then for month 2, we'll do 150. Yeah. I'm trying to make sure I match this up so I can kind of show you guys. 60, 50, 50. That kind of bugged. That was not supposed to happen, but yeah. You'll see what happens. And then 60, 70, 60, 60. So we won't actually get the total spent yet. We'll see that later on. So we'll skip all this. And then we have the third middle part, I guess, of the program, which is our maintenance and repair. We set both variables, maintenance total, maintenance budget, to 0. And then we'll have basically a title saying maintenance and repair to let the user know that we're at this part of the calculating. So now it asks enter the total maintenance. So the total maintenance is basically your budget. I mean, not your budget. It's the actual what you actually spent. So let's say we spent 2,000. Right? Now we're asked for the actual budget. So just to show you guys again, input validation, enter positive. So if we enter 1,800, just like the rent, home insurance, just like the rent and home insurance, yeah. It will tell you, first of all, it will tell you maintenance and repair are over the budget by $200. Now, if it was less, it would have told you otherwise. Like, see, there you go, right here. So because our maintenance total was greater than the budget, it gave us this prompt and the amount. If it was the other way around, it would give us this message and the amount. And then if it matched, it would give us this amount. So now, to kind of shorten this video, I think I'm a little over. Now we have the total renovation. So this is where our Boolean function from all the way up here comes into play. So we have total renovations. So if, let's say I chose no, but I'm gonna say yes. So if we choose, let's do no. Or actually, let's do, see, you'll see, if I press W, it'll tell me please enter Y or N. But I'm gonna choose no, but before I do that, you'll see here, if I enter lowercase or uppercase n, it'll tell me this message, and then it moves on to the next it'll move on to the next phase. Sorry for my language if I spill that out. And yeah, those will be set to, we won't have basically a number for that. That will just be skipped. But if the user does press say yes, then we'll set renovation total and budget to 0, and then we'll have the user enter the total cost, which would be the actual spend and the actual budget, and then from there we'll compare the two. So we'll just do no for now. So skipped, and now we're at the final part, close to the final part anyways. So this void meals is our function that we're gonna use for the groceries and the restaurants. This is gonna work similar to the utilities, where we're gonna have the budget set, and then it's gonna reset for the months, for the actual that we actually spent for the months. So we'll get the title here, and then it asks enter the budget for the groceries per month. So let's say 300, and then the budget for the restaurants. Again, if I were to choose negative, it will tell me positive. So let's choose 40. Now we get the new. Oh wait, actually, before I explain this part, we are now into the next function, which is collect meals monthly, which will have our start and end month, and then our actual our grocery budget, our grocery total, and restaurant budget and restaurant total. Restaurant total and grocery total is the actual what you actually spent for the month, and then we already have the budget. So we set the groceries total and the restaurant totals to 0. Get the title here, enter the monthly actual. So for month 1, because that's our start month, as you can see here, we have a for loop that has int month equals start month. As long as month is less than or equal to end month, we'll increment month by 1. And then we'll double G and double R. Double G and R are groceries and restaurants for the actual total that we spent. So now we get prompt groceries total for this month. Again, if what we put is less than 0, it'll tell us again, please enter a deposit number. So let's say we matched it. It will tell you groceries 320, and then it will refer to the budget here from what you inputted as the budget for the groceries, and it'll tell you exactly matched. And yes, I used if loops as well. I mean if, else, and else. If, else, if, and else. I keep freaking butchering that. But yeah, you get that for both. Basically comparing them. And same thing with the restaurant. It'll tell you what you inputted for the actual, and then the budget will show up here, and it tells you it matches. So let's say you spent less month 2. Now it tells you how much you spent, what was the actual budget, and how much you save over $200. And then it tells you what you spent on the restaurant, what was the budget, and how much you saved. And lastly, let's say you went over the budget by, let's say you did 340 groceries and then jumped to 60. It will tell you how much you went over by, referencing the budget and referencing the budget for both restaurant and groceries. And it'll tell you how much you went over by. And then for the final part, well, we're not there yet actually. And then it'll tell you how much you actually spent on groceries and restaurants for those 3 months. So Now we're at the final part, um, where basically this could get a little complicated, but this will basically print out everything we've inputted. And to do that, this is where we start. So the rent monthly actual equals read positive. Read positive is, remember, the function here. So to do this, it's gonna be a little pain in the butt, but you have to basically scroll back over here. My battery's low, but we'll get this through. So we put 1,000 for the rent, and it was, I believe, 900, and then it'll ask you again how much was the insurance. So 800, 700 was the actual budget. The maintenance, I believe, we said 2,000, and the actual budget was 18, and then there was no renovations. So then at the end, it will tell you how much you actually spent and how much was the total budget. So yeah, that's the project. And yeah, I mean, I tried with however I could have done it. I know I could have done a little bit more, better. Yeah, that's my project, and I hope you enjoyed it. Oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that.